Well, hey, so yeah, I will probably start. So this is meeting about the discussing ideas to refactor a repository X-ray project, and in a minute I will explain what the project is. Should I share a screen or?
Yes, please.
Give me a second. I will share a screen. I need to find the project first. Yeah. So recently at GitLab, we start working on a new project, which is going to help us to enhance a code suggestion feature. So the current state of a project, the current goal of a project is it's a Golang project, which is going to be run as a CI job, and it is going to collect information about like dependencies in the repository. Currently, it supports several packages, like for example, RubyGem and package.json for JavaScript and Go mode for Golang. What the project does, it scans these dependency packages files, collects a list of dependencies, and then ask AI to provide description of every library. And then later in code suggestions, when we ask to code suggestion to generate a new code, we will provide a list of libraries and saying something like, look, this project uses this and that libraries. Then you suggest the code, please take into account and suggest code using these libraries and not introducing new libraries, something like this. And this is a very fresh project. We started it in December. And idea of this meeting is to gather ideas. What can we improve? How can we refactor code? How can we use more Golang style in here? And for me, it's an opportunity to learn about Golang more. Yeah, I think that's for introduction. So maybe I will share yet another screen and just show the code around. I need to find it. So here's the current code. We are in the main package and sorry. I'm sorry. I need to make So first thing what we do, we have a couple of flags where we provide the directory we're going to scan and the directory where we're going to store the files. We will get to this later, and the version. So first of all, we have list of these dependencies, which we just provide as a name and a dependency, which is a constant here. We go through all of them. And first, I have a package, I called it discovery because it looks for files, for the specified files of every package managers in the current directory. And yeah, gets and then goes through every file and create reports. How do you prefer we go with this? We go to every, or we get a general overview first?
I don't know, up to you. I think just general overview.
All right.
Okay.
So first we locate the files, and then we start scanning them into and storing in the reports. So here's the process dependencies, which is here. And yeah, so this kind of file, we get a list of dependencies, and then we go into them. So in small batches, the reason why we're doing small batches, because the response from AI is limited to like 4,000 tokens, and we probably get more, get over this limit if we provide list of all the dependencies. For example, in GitLab for Ruby, we have like more than 300 dependencies, and here the batch is like 25. And give me a second. Yeah, so the general overview, we collect list of these libraries and then ask for their description. Our AI API gets us the description. And then once we get them, we store them into one of the file, which is like here, Ruby.json, for example. And to make it more visible, we can format it. So it creates file like this. This is a checksum. Reason why I create checksum, just in case we check if a file is changed. So if it's not changed, we don't need to rescan it again. That's a file name and like list of libraries, which contains gem name or any library name based on the programming language and the description. And we have here scanner version just in case if we want to change format. Yeah, we would use this version for some reason. If you go back, let's start jumping into some libraries. So first, how we find the file? We have a discovery package. It just finds a file locally and gets a checksum. Then yeah, once we have a file, we start scanning it, and scanning. Since we are supporting a lot of these package managers, I determined the package manager by dependency type, which is, yeah, I have, sorry, where is it? Yeah. I have dependencies where I specify all of the, I'm sorry. All the packages we support. Several programming languages we support several packages. For example, Python has Poetry, pip, and Conda. So and they have different file formats. So that's why I separate them. And same for Java, for example. And yeah, go back to scan. Where is it? Yeah, here. To scan, we pass a file and dependency type, which we gathered here. So yeah, every file has its dependency type. And we start scanning, like depending on dependency, there is implementation for every scanner. For example, this one, gem file, it looks, if we take a look into a gem file example, it has a following format, and there is a line dependencies, and after dependencies, which is a list of all dependencies until we reach the end of it. And yeah, so basically that's what it does. And several similar to package.json file, which already uses JSON decoder because it's a JSON file, and it looks for these two categories, dependencies and dev dependencies. And yeah, the similar stuff for the rest of the file or rest of the dependencies. And what next? So we have scan, then we have AI client where we provide credentials, and Yeah, what it does, it provides a body and sends request to GitLab API. And the response is, we provide list of dependencies and get the response back. Also, one more thing, we pass, should be a prompt here somewhere. Yeah, here. We have a prompt. I'm sorry. Here's a prompt, what we sent. I'm sorry, give me a second. Where is it? I need to mute. Here's a prompt file, a prompt template, which we sent to as a request to AI. The reason why it's here in line and not specified as a, how do you say this? Not in separate directory, because when we compile the application, we need to run it, and this file will not be next to the executable. So that's the reason it's embedded. I think where was it? Yeah, I was using this part to embed this file, and description looked like this. It sends requests to Anthropic through GitLab. That's why we have this format human and assistant. So yeah, we have following list of libraries, and then provide ask them to provide the response like this, where is name and description. And here we pass the list of all these libraries. If you look into test file, so it will make more clear how the response looks. So that's the prompt, and that's a list of libraries we provide. Then what else here? Yeah, it's all about prompt. And yeah, as I mentioned, we have this each batch. So I've created a small package utils just to split into smaller chunks and iterate over this. And here's the logging library. I've just picked slog because it's a part of standard library, but I'm not sure which one is better. I was reading articles comparing them, and it seems like it's not a bad choice, but I'm not sure about this. And yeah, once we start iterating, we have this. Yeah, that's a prompt, how we get the descriptions. And yeah, that's basically API request where we pass the prompt and bunch of options to the GitLab AI, and it responds us back. Once we get body, if we go back to a prompt, we ask to AI to wrap our response into this description, XML tags. So, and we're providing like a first description. That's meaning the response will be like completed from here. And in the end, we should get a closing description tag. That's why we have lost where I was. It's AI client, I think. So yeah, also we have this separator, which we pass to, when we get response, we have a separator between name and description, and just a custom one, just to easily split the description from the name. And yeah, once we send request, we have this closing tag somewhere here in the constant. Yeah, which is just closing description tag. We cut it from the response, and basically we get a simple list of name dash 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 description. Yeah, here I have like just a slice of these dependencies, and every time we get response, I add them to the list. And once we have this, I have a report package, which I called save. And what it does, it's created a directory. In our case, it's reports libs. It can be specified with a flag. And yeah, they'll just store a JSON into one of these files. And let me quickly show how it works. But before we do, I need to run GDK. I was not prepared, so give me a second. So in order to run, since the job is going to run as a CI job, it needs job ID at GitLab, and it's need to like this add-on enabled. So I have it all configured. So let me quickly run it. Before every run, we need to run this. We should have some CI job running. So on localhost, we do this trick. We run it in Rails console. And so I have also Makefile with a lot of useful scripts which I can use. And I have, for example, run all, which runs against all these files. And to make it example a little bit smaller, let's just comment out a bunch of them. Otherwise, it will take more time. Yeah, so here it says it found Go mode, package JSON and Gemfile log, and it starts iterating through them. We can also remove these files. Okay, so the reason why we have this error, I need to prepare my GDK and double check everything. But we can do it later. It's doesn't really matter for this
Yeah, I think
example.
it's pretty clear what it does. Yeah, I guess the first thing is last time I looked, which was a few hours ago, the README didn't have a description of what the project does. So it's probably the first thing you want to do, add the description. It says how it works and everything and how to run it, but not what this project does.
That's a great point. So we have notes here and have a couple of questions. Let's say it's open question. Let's write everything down. Consider adding a project description and what the project does. So, README, right? Okay.
Yeah, for the linter, I think everyone uses Golang CI lint. I think it's a good collection of linters. Just give that a go. It should be okay. And the login library, I haven't tried slog, but I would definitely recommend it. And I hope everyone switches to slog eventually. And we will finally have a single login library in the whole ecosystem at last.
That's what I thought. I also was trying to run this Golang. So I was discovering different lint packages, and I was trying this one as well. Okay, so I will add this to here. And
Slog is fine. TLDR.
all right.
I would use it for a new project.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of logging, only like this part here, which just outputs into a standard output. And I use two types of info, just almost everything, and warning here is when we have something not working.
Okay, sure. How do you want to like start looking at the code?
I don't know, would it be easier for you to go through
Yeah, I
it,
think
or?
I can share my
All right,
my.
then I will stop sharing.
Mm, where is it? Um, yeah, so let's start from main. I think in general, this is perfectly fine. I think CMD and the binary name and the main and so on. So far, it's all good. I think in general, what you described kind of makes sense. It's easy to follow. Then I guess, what's we probably want this program to run as quickly as possible because it's running in a CI job. So we are paying the customer, whoever is running this is paying for the time.
Yeah,
I guess
there is a issue, so where we discuss it in order to make it somehow to this job not use CI minutes. Because we can make it run, but it does a bunch of requests to AI and they are not very fast. So, but that's a good point, and let me write it down.
so. I
Sorry
think
for
if
interrupting.
our bottleneck in terms of time it takes to do these things is the request to an external API, then can we make multiple requests concurrently?
Yeah, I think we can, depending on how our API will respond with. That was my one of the ideas to try at least, and
Yeah, it should be able to. I guess unless there is some sort of very tight rate limit on how many API calls we can make, but this can also be configurable by the user of the binary. They can say, make it most n, requests concurrently, and we can have a semaphore that only allows that many requests to be issued concurrently. Otherwise, we have this list of dependencies. We can look for them and run this stuff concurrently, basically.
do we need to specify how many concurrently, or just
Yeah, you can run all of them
all of them?
concurrently, and then because there's like what, 10 or something like this.
Yeah, but this list is going to be grow. So right now we're a couple of more dependencies for C++ and more for Java, I think, for
I think
Kotlin.
it should be fine. It's mostly disk access, and then most of them will not exist anyway. Right. In the project, you have one package manager or two or something like this, but not 20 or.
That's correct. Yeah.
So most of them will just read the file or look for a file and then exit. So I think it's fine to run them all concurrently and then just do this as part of that Go routine that does concurrently. And then process dependencies. Yeah, we can also run this concurrently, or each batch, all the batches, we can run them concurrently. And that's where we can have the mutex, or not mutex, a semaphore that ensures we don't overload our quota, don't, exhaust our quota.
Makes sense. Let me quickly write it down. It's request concurrently for for each dependency and run each batch concurrently as well.
Mhm. Yeah, this is probably the big thing to change. Everything else is cosmetic changes or improvements. We can also talk about that. So I don't
Yeah,
know. I think
we
it's
can do it in several iterations to do it once refactoring and then get another session. Yeah.
yeah. So there is no built-in formatting in slog. You have to use sprintf. Is that right? I haven't used it.
That's what I found. Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you pass more parameters to this info, it will consider it as a key value pairs. So you have a message and then sort of JSON
Yeah.
where
Pairs.
you pass key value. And so you cannot have like 4 parameters. So you need message and then pairs add 2 more parameters each time. So one will be considered as a key, one is as a value. So,
Okay.
but that's why I use printf. So I haven't found better solution. So
Oh, I think it's fine. Working as intended or as designed. And this is where we are reading, scanning.
so yeah, since most of files we receive a file, the open file, start reading a file and then scan through them. That's why we have this like extracted here and passed a scanner inside. I'm not sure if that's a like good from Golang perspective approach.
I think it's probably fine.
All right.
But I don't know. I would encapsulate this. I would structure this a little bit in a different way. I would have conceptually a dependency file parser, something like this interface, and it would have a method parse file, or
Yeah.
probably parse file if it's a single file, usually, or always even, and then this code doesn't need to know about each language, right? You can have it
Yeah.
as a map and then, or as a list of scanners or, parsers. And then depending on the type, you can
Yeah.
call this
I also
scanner or
thinking
that
about
scanner.
this. Yeah, I
So
was also
that
thinking
would
about this. If you sorry, yeah, it's delayed. So you go.
that would allow you to decouple each scanner from this logic, like, because currently you have it all bundled in a single function and helper functions. So, like, untangle it a bit further and have each thing kind of as an individual building block that is separate. And then each of them should probably be responsible for reading the file and parsing it as it prefers. So you don't open the file for them, just give them the file name, and then that's the API between the caller and the parser of the dependency file. I would do it this way.
Yeah. I was also thinking about this, and does it mean I have a question following for this? Does it mean this depth Ruby JavaScript it needs to be so now it's a constant. If you go to the depth package and Ruby JavaScript, it's a constant. And in order to use interface, as I understand, it needs to be like a separate type, and then this type will have scan file something method.
You can make it work this way or that way. Uh, um, um, I would probably have an interface that encapsulates all of the behavior. So it would have a method that returns the name of the file. Or even better, maybe. So yeah, there are many ways to do it. Like, you can have a an interface that represents a package manager, and you can have a method. Is this directory, do you support this directory, or do you manage this directory? And then you just pass the directory name, and this method tells you yes. And then, or maybe it directly returns you a list of dependencies from that directory. Then you encapsulate the name of the file. You encapsulate all the logic, and you just call this thing and give it a directory, and that it, because theoretically there can be a package manager that has more than one file that it needs to look. I don't know if there are such managers for dependencies, but or you can have an interface that gives you the name of the file. Then you read the file maybe and give it the contents, or you give it the full file name, like path and file name, and then it reads it by itself. There are multiple ways to do it, but I think it's good to decouple. Like, this seems like a natural decoupling boundary for the core logic of this application and those building blocks that are the dependency management interface, like interaction interface, bits. So I would definitely have an API here, like an interface. And then you can test logic here and test each of those package manager things independently, separately. You can also have, that way you can have integration tests for each of those package managers, where you can have a test data directory and subdirectories for each package manager. And under that subdirectory, let's say Go, you can have multiple directories with different how it's called, fixtures or test data, and then you can run that package manager building block on each of those directories and ensure that it gives you the results that you expect. So have a directory with input and a file with expected output. And then you can easily add test cases to that.
Yeah, right, makes sense.
Does that make sense? I think it's an easy way to add more test cases for that. For any package manager, you just give it a directory with files and check what it produces against the expected.
So how do we summarize this as a note? Refactor, scan, to use interface. How do you summarize this?
Introduce an interface that represents a dependency manager. To decouple main business logic from dependency management implementation details. Something like this, maybe.
Dependency management.
Like, oh, nice. And then you have whatever you have here, and then you have type something like this. Dependencies from theory here, and then that's something like this.
So we just pass the file and it returns a list of them, right?
Yeah, basically. If it doesn't manage, like returns nil if it doesn't manage. Or maybe it would be better to return a sentinel error here, but like so that you can tell the difference if it's a Go project that, or it will return an empty list. So you can say if it's an empty list, it is a Go project. But if it's a nil, that means it's not a Go project. I mean, it
Okay.
may be a Go project with no dependencies. Does it make sense? It may be a Go project
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
dependencies, and you need to be able to tell the difference. Maybe sometimes it's important. This manage depend. Ah, something like this. I would do something like this.
All right.
Yeah. Uh,
Let me put this under like this. So I was trying to separate this part where we find the file with dependencies, and then when we scan this and get the description.
yeah, but we can just encapsulate this whole thing. Which
All right.
file you are looking for? Is it a single file or multiple files? Maybe there is some weird structure, like business logic of this whole program doesn't need to know about it, how each package manager works. It kind of just
Makes
can
sense. Yeah.
manipulate things on a very high level, and then each package manager thing can know the details. I think that's probably the good approach here. And okay, let's just look at these things. Oh, it's probably, I don't know, probably fine. If that's the format, then maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah, since we have a separate methods or functions for this for every dependencies, I thought it can be like refactoring easily if you find a better way to parse a file. And yeah.
Oh, don't use this. Like this whole decoder encoder is
What should I do instead?
the description. So it reads JSON values from an input stream. But what you have is where was it? Basically, do you have an example of this? Here somewhere. So it would read one thing, but if you have input like this, which is an invalid composer, like JSON,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
it would not complain, right? It would read until here and it's fine. And then it will ignore this. So you would not know that the file is invalid.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just, I hope that there is a proposal for the JSON v2 package. And I really hope they will deliver it. In Go 122, I think the rand v2, which is the very first v2 package in the standard library, I think it's coming. Yeah, it's definitely coming. So that's kind of the not an experiment, but the very first one, that's a V2. So yeah, I think this will not be in V2. So the
What should we
encoder and
do?
decoder basically yeah, it's not a good, they're not a good thing to use. Just read the stream or the file and like in memory, because this thing does buffering anyway. So just read the whole file in memory, and maybe you want to have a limit, like if it's a gigabyte, you don't want to read the whole thing, but also if it's a gigabyte, it's not your problem. Who ran this? That's their problem. So read the whole file and just do it just on Marshall
On Mars. All right.
into the same
Okay.
or instead of decode, because yeah, decodes the stream of, you see, reads the next just on encoded value. But it's, yeah, it's not what you want. You want the whole thing to be parsed and written. There is a Go time podcast, and there is an episode with someone who maintains the, or back then was maintaining, I don't know if they still maintaining it. The person who maintains the JSON package, and they talk quite a bit about what's wrong there and what can be optimized but cannot be optimized because of compatibility and so on. So yeah, basically it's a problematic package type, and the whole package is
Makes
needs to
sense.
be,
Yeah.
it needs to
Uh,
be re-implemented, which, as I said, they will do soon at some point. And so we unmarshal this dependencies, we just add everything here. Okay. Does it need to be?
it's different file probably.
On
Like package JSON.
yeah, I'm looking at the wrong file.
Because it has two categories, one dependencies and dev dependencies, and I just merge them. And right now doesn't make a lot of difference between them.
You
They
could
just get
say
into the same list.
use these dependencies for tests, but this probably doesn't matter. AI wouldn't. I hope AI won't use testing, mocking frameworks and stuff in production code, only in tests.
Yeah.
Anyway, this otherwise it's fine.
Yeah, there are some files which are a little bit more complicated. Yeah, the Go mode, for example, it has
there is
two formats.
There is a package for it, right? You can just use the library to parse it.
Yeah, I've seen something like this, but it seems to me like more complicated than just to parse as a text.
Well,
And
you can run into problems if you hand
maybe, yeah.
So I don't know, up to you. I would use a library here because there is a library that's specifically for this, but I haven't looked at it
Yeah,
ever.
so
I don't know.
consider using
Yeah, definitely.
library
For
to
everything else,
parse
not only for Go, for everything else,
format.
maybe there is a library. Consider, at least see if there is a library and maybe use it. Or if there is a good reason not to use it, why not leave a comment here somewhere like I'm not using this
Yeah,
library because this and that.
I've seen a couple of them, for example, for this TOML file for Python, and the library either had like very bad description, I couldn't figure out how to make it work, or it was very complicated to use. So, but yeah, since we have separate functions for every package manager, I was thinking we can refactor it later if we find a better solution.
No, otherwise it's just text manipulation. And
Yeah, most
YAML.
of them are like a similar ones.
I don't know if what I said about JSON applies to the YAML. I don't know if it works the same way. Yeah, probably it does. YAML values from a stream. So Yeah, I would use and Marshall. Also,
Okay.
what library are you using? YAML.
It's probably standard one.
Yeah, this is the standard one. Although in the Kubernetes world they forked, I think, this library and made some changes. I don't know. Yeah, no, this is perfect. No problem. Shouldn't be. Stream. I don't know what this is.
So there is something that contains a type. I don't remember exactly right now.
Ah, okay. You are looking
Yeah.
at
If what was this file? It's environment YAML. If you go on,
the node, and it can be whatever.
yeah, it can be a list or a string, something like this. If you go to this environment file on the left, like in examples, so it will make sense probably. Yeah, so if you see this pip, it can be a string or it can be a nested one.
Yeah.
Line 14 and 13, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I just ignore this nested one in this case.
Is this valid syntax?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I found it's in documentation page. And then there is even a link to where I get it from.
You probably can also no, it's probably fine. Yeah, it's probably fine. And same thing, don't use this.
Yeah.
And POM XML. And this is the same. Just I'm not sure.
Yeah, I will find. Yeah, some of them like looks very complicated. If you look into this, how's it called, a Gradle file somewhere.
Yeah, you see, you have
It's
a mix of like some Gradle dependency parsing logic is here, and some in a different package.
yeah.
Doesn't
This
sound
one
right.
is for one line. If you look into this build Gradle file in
Yeah,
the
but why is
files
it in
on the
this?
left,
What's the purpose of this package?
because I pass a one line of this file and a parse dependency. So if you look at the example file, it has a lot of different formats and build.gradle.
Mm-hmm.
My first one, yeah. It can have dependency written in all of these different ways.
Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is you have logic that is spread across two packages, and that should probably be in the same
Right.
package,
Right.
encapsulated in that dependency manager interface implementation.
Makes sense. Let me write it down. Um,
Yeah.
use
You
parsing logic.
can also put everything, I mean, every manager in a separate directory if you want to make sure they don't accidentally
Yeah.
depend on each other or on other things. Yeah, that's probably a good thing to do. Okay, let's look at this file as well. Now you probably want to check if it actually was able to cut on the space, because this may be invalid in that case. So do you want to produce an error, or you just ignore problematic strings? I don't know. You probably want to at least log an error, but continue, so that the user can know that something might not be working properly, right?
I was thinking maybe to ignore this, because if you write a log somewhere in the CI job, no one will
No,
like
but
look and
there
change
may be a
anything.
bug in the program as well, right? It
I
may be
see.
valid data, but you also they may have valid format, but your code that parses it may have a bug, and you will not even know that it's failing to parse it, right?
Alright.
And if you see some errors, at least you will have a clue that something might not be working correctly. Either the data is invalid that it's trying to parse, or maybe, imagine there is in Go mode, imagine they decide to introduce some other new section, and
Yeah.
you won't even know because you don't see an error. You just think it works perfectly, but it doesn't. So at least log it. It's fine to ignore and continue, because for this task that you have, I think it's the right behavior. But also the program should say that this happened, that happened, so that you will understand what's going on. If you are,
Makes sense.
if support people, create an issue and ask you to figure out why this is not using the right library when it, suggests um, some implementation for some request,
Yeah.
you will be able to see that actually it can just failing to parse some dependencies. That's why it kind of doesn't see that it can use that library. Yeah,
So basically we need to log more stuff.
log what's
Right?
important. And in this case, if it should be able to parse, but it fails to parse, that means either the input data is wrong or the code is wrong that can't parse it. So either way, either the user needs to know, or you as a developer of this program need to know that something's not okay. So it kind of makes sense in both cases to leave a message that this happened. And this can be changed into cut. Split n with 2 is what cut does. Cut is more efficient because it doesn't allocate. This thing allocates a slice. Cut doesn't allocate a slice.
Okay.
It gives you the pieces directly. Usually you compile it once, so you kind of put it here somewhere into a variable, because otherwise every time this is called, you compile the regex, which is expensive. It doesn't need to be escaped.
So use must compile once, right? But it has different versions of it. So this must compile used in differently in different methods. So I would need several variables, right?
Yeah, different names and different variables. Otherwise, every time you call it, you compile. But also, yeah, just usually this is done one time in a variable.
Okay.
Also here you probably want, like, because this is a possessive quantifier star, you probably want not a dot, but I usually do this way. Like anything between, so it will keep matching until it finds the quote. I usually do it this way, because
All right.
you don't want to keep matching forever and then backtrack until you find the double quote. This just works differently. the way it was written, it will match until at the very end because of the star, and then it will backtrack until there is a double quote. And this way, it will just go forward until it can't match, and it will not be able to match if there is a double quote, because this will stop matching, and then it will perfectly match the double quote. So it's just more performant, also
So
ensures there are no surprises. It will just do it until the double quote.
avoid using dot star in regex.
Well,
Okay.
not avoid, but it's just when you are matching something like this with double quotes, you don't want to go forward and then go back. Just want to go until the quote. I don't know how to summarize.
Yeah, avoid or find a better way. Okay, it makes sense.
Here, if you are formatting it like this, prefix, expression.
Yeah, so this question was also raised, but this regular expression gets very long if I use all of them, like this prefix and then name. And I also have two of them for name and the version. And what do you think about this interpolation? Should be in line or?
So this will be the prefix. This will be
Yeah,
the name, and then
name or version.
Yeah, you can just have two. It's okay. Long rejects are fine. Why not?
All right. Yeah, because there is a merge request for Kotlin, and Kotlin adds more of this. It has now implementation and test implementation, and Kotlin can use them also wrapped into like double quotes. So the prefix gets longer. So all right, let me
It's
write it
fine.
down.
I think it's fine.
It's okay to use
So
long.
you run it against the input, and you just yeah, because you don't know which way they are ordered, so you need to run multiple.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I think it's fine to just have a long regex. It is also fine to construct it like this if it's easier to construct it like this.
Yeah, because a prefix is used in several places. It's also on the line 100, was it 53? There's yet another. So it has two formats, long format and short format, and the prefix used in both. And if I need to extend the prefix, I would need to change in several places. That's another reason. That's why I was thinking to extract it.
No, I think it's fine. You can do this. You can do it this way.
All right.
But I would
All right.
still extract it all into variables. Package
Makes sense.
level variables to construct them one time. You know what? You can also, yeah, it's probably not worth it, but just FYI, in Go 120, 121, so it's a regex one. There's sync once func, I think, or once value, yeah. And that can be the regex. And you can do it here. Like if you want to do it in a lazy way, then at some point later you can do R1. Why is it not? It's a function, right?
Because
And it gives you the formatted string, sorry, the regex.
Okay, so
This is
sync
just
once.
I'm not saying you should do this. I'm just saying this would be a way to lazily
I will read about this. Read about sync once.
There is sync once.
Once value.
Here. Sync once, but it's kind of a predecessor of this because this is more convenient because it has generics. So, and this thing doesn't have a type. So you would run something here and you would have another variable, let's say int, and then you would do z something. And
Okay.
this, if you have it, anyway,
I will read about it. Yeah.
just use one value and that's it. It's the type safe way that is available in 121. Sorry, 120. No, 121. Yeah, but you don't need this. Just FYI, you can do it lazily if you don't want to compile all the rejections. But it shouldn't be a problem, of course. It's just if you had 1,000 rejections in your program and only like 5 are needed ever if you run it. Compiling 100 or 100 or 1,000 rejections would slow down program startup. So you could do it lazily if you wanted to, if it was a problem. But in this case, it's not a problem.
All right.
Everything
So
else.
give me a minute. I will be right back in a minute.
I'll keep looking at things. So another thing I would change is you don't need to construct this client every time, right? Because it potentially is constructed multiple times here. Just construct it one time outside of the loop and
pass. All right.
and another thing is don't access, or at least try very hard not to access any global state like environment variables somewhere deep in the code. I usually try to have an application type, a struct that is called app.
Yeah.
So in your main, you initialize, you read the environment variables, command line flags, configuration, anything else. Once you figured out all the configuration bits, you put it in all of them into that app as fields. And then on that app, you have a run, and then you run it. So you have your configured application that is decoupled from where it gets its configuration. And
Yeah.
you
Let me
access
write it
field
down
on
quickly.
struct and don't go and read environment variables somewhere deep inside of the call stack.
Avoid accessing. Um, this page. Okay.
Oh, I would also move this outside of this client. I mean, I guess some people do it like this. I usually, it kind of makes sense to, these are guard clauses, right? You
Yeah.
need to understand what you are protecting against. Are you protecting against a coder mistake, or are you protecting against misconfiguration? So usually, I mean, it would crash or not work completely in a bad way if
Yeah.
the stuff is invalid. So just you are likely protecting against a misconfiguration, and in that case, this should be checked when you get these values from some outside source. So if you are reading a configuration file, that's when right after you read stuff from it, that's when you validate that it's not
Yeah.
empty, and so on and so forth. And here
So
you just don't do this, just return the client, basically.
yeah, I've added this check because when we run this application in CI, we need some like way to see what is not correct.
Yeah,
And
that's perfectly fine. But I would move this when I'm constructing that abstract application struct
makes sense. Yeah.
we just talked about, and after I read those environment variables, I would check that the values that they had, I'm happy with those values. And if not, I'm just immediately saying, hey, this is missing or whatever. Because maybe
Would
you
it be
want.
okay
Hmm?
to do all this check in this application type file where we read all of them and check,
You can have a
validate?
constructor, or you can have a struct, and then you can just have a function that initializes that thing, which is kind of the same thing, a function that produces.
Like application type constructor, right? Can
Yes.
be checked
Sorry, one second.
in.
Yeah, so you can think of it as of a constructor, or just basically this can be part of main, literally just code here that reads everything like it does here, and then somewhere before it's doing its business logic, you would have a, this probably should be outside, and then you have
Yeah, it makes
here,
sense.
and then you would uh, do this and then assign fields here and then for run, probably with the context, and the context you get from OS context or something, or runtime. There's a notify context. Yeah, signal, that's the package.
Is it signal which
Yeah, and you would run your application with this. So here you see the way it absorbs configuration from the outside world
Yeah,
and business logic are all in the same function. Ideally, they shouldn't be in the same function because they are separate, conceptually separate things. So you
makes sense. Yeah.
configure things and then you run things. And then it's like
So and
putting
run
everything
will
into separate boxes, and then you have a smaller box, smaller box, smaller box, and you can individually see what's there, and it kind of an individual unit that makes sense, and everything else can be somewhere else.
yeah, and so all of these dependencies like to these loops will go into this run method, right? Okay, makes sense.
And then this can also return an error. And
Like
then
separate
if it's not
configuration
new, you can
from this.
exit with some code, something like this.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, probably you want to
Yeah, right.
print something and print the error and something like this. I don't know. You get the idea. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move on. Yeah, so don't need to construct it every time and move this somewhere else. And this can be concurrent as we discussed. And
Yeah.
let's go into this. Let's see. Oh, I also wanted to mention that yes, you can do it this way, but I think you can just have it as like bytes or something, and then the compiler would. It already embeds it into the binary, yes, but this way you don't need to do all of that, right? You can just directly just what do this or something. So file is the file and content is what is template data. Oh, this is just the name of the template, right? And the data.
Yes. Yeah.
Data. So that we will do it this way. Yep. I
Could you
think
copy and paste it into our
it's
document file?
bytes or must embed the embed package. Remove it this way. It can be a string or a slice of bytes or fs. Yes. So if you want it as a string, because you want it as a string, just make it a string.
Right.
That's cool. I didn't know you can use a string. So then that becomes unnecessary.
Okay. I need to write it down. Use template string instead of template file system, right?
Line, this is the client. And client. So again, when you are creating this, inject a client like as a field, because you are making multiple requests and if you are
Yeah.
in new transport, which is this thing, then you will not reuse the underlying TCP connections, which most likely could be reused. But yeah, if it's an empty transport, sorry, when empty client means it uses the default transport, which it means, yes, it reuses connections, but conceptually, it's not the job of this wrapper to create a client, or maybe it
Okay.
is. And in that case, it should be kind of initialized here, but it should still be used here. It shouldn't be done every time. So make it a field, basically. That's what I'm saying.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Quests. Okay. Marshal it, then we do post. And patch new buffer. You can just new reader, but it's a simpler thing than a buffer. Buffer allows you to write. Right, bytes buffer is a writer as well, and new reader is just a reader. So just use the reader. It's a simpler thing, basically. And it's just conceptually, your code talks to the reader. It says, hey, this is just for reading. And if it's a buffer, I immediately stumble upon it and think, okay, do I want the writer as well or not? No, I don't actually. So it's kind of confuses me a little bit.
Yeah.
So
I will read about these differences.
Here also in the main, if we have a context, we should use that in things like the API calls, and then there is
Yeah.
request with context, and then the context should be passed here, and then we can pass it here, and then this actually can be a constant as well. And yeah, here it's fine, it's all fine. Yeah, don't use the decoder again. Use unmarshal. Read the full body and use the unmarshal. Parse body.
This one just separates name from description and create list of dependencies.
Here, you see, there is a parsing the body is extracted, but constructing a request is here, yeah, kind of. So it's kind of different levels of not abstraction, but this code is lower level than that code, maybe.
So what should I do?
On the other hand, marshalling is here, and unmarshalling is also here. String. Why is it string? What does it do?
I've cut it with closing XML tag from the body. So if you look in the text test file, there's probably an example of response, and maybe it will make more sense.
Where is it?
Oh yeah, there is no test file. What's it called? GitLab. GitLab test. Yeah. Oh, it's above AI client GitLab test. Yeah, so if you see the response will have this closing description XML tag, and I just cut it because
Why is it there? Is it because of the
it's how this respond. So we provide an example to AI model how to start, and we provide this description opening tag. So when it responds, it will not include it. It will only have ending tag.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I've never
Because
worked with such an API, but it just feels strange to yeah, it's not structured like a JSON or
yeah,
XML.
so
It's just text
the,
this way, text that way, and you have to parse it if you want to. Can you ask it to produce a well formatted JSON or something?
well, JSON is has a lot of like noise data, like all the text. So the first version was using JSON, but the JSON is more lengthy than just a list of strings,
Mhm.
and the response is limited into this 4,000 token, and one token is like something around 4 characters.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
that's
I
just
understand.
for reason to reduce this
Yeah,
uh, the
useless
response.
noise. I understand. Okay. Maybe it can just encode everything into a protobuf then. Maybe in the future.
Yeah.
Cool. Um,
This one was but we call API directly, not using it right now, but we just kept the code for.
mm,
Uh, so now we call GitLab API and get response. And before first implementation, we was calling this Anthropic directly.
mhm,
And I just kept these two similar AI clients
mhm,
for, I don't know, some reason. Maybe we'll use it for local testing, stuff like this.
mhm,
And this is very similar to GitLab API. Just has different request body and
mhm.
response probably very similar.
Wait, no, what? So,
So on report, it's basically when we gathered all the information, we just store it into a file.
yeah, I would separate conceptually. These are two things. One is a data object, like just holds data, and another thing, something that acts on that data, like persists it into a file. You can also imagine you would have another thing, maybe, right, that persists it into a database. And what? Are you going to add a new method? No, right? You would have a separate thing that saves it somewhere, and
Okay,
that thing can be whatever. So I would decouple the saving and just an object that contains data.
decouple reports from saving
Saving,
reports.
saving reports, yeah.
Uh,
This would be over engineering, but theoretically, you would. I mean, imagine your program can be configured where to save the data. You would construct this report saver or that report saver and inject it
yeah,
into the application, right? And then it will have all the reports, pass them to the report saver, and this thing would save the reports.
makes sense. Yeah,
I think we looked at this already. Yes. Um, yeah,
yeah, and also like
yeah.
which do batches.
I don't know. This is probably fine. Um, okay. I need to go.
Sure, but they already covered pretty much everything.
Yeah, we can have another conversation if we want to, if we need to.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I will use these notes and do small refactors, and then after some time we can do another round. Because once we have more code, it's easier to see what can be refactored. So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.